Now turning to our program, please welcome Jamie Reeve, Senior Vice President, Wealth Strategies at Northern Trust Company, to introduce our speaker. Afternoon, everybody. Before I introduce, I'm going to hijack real quickly. Our fellow Rotarian and friend, Patrick Fennelly, is down in Indiana getting some really important treatment. He's got a lot of time on his hands. So for anyone interested in sending him a heartfelt message, a dad joke, a funny quip, find me or Saj afterward. We're going to take some video clips and send them to him to brighten his day. All right, now to today's program. I'm really thrilled. This is kind of a full circle moment. Back in 2018 at one of those tables by Josh Morby, I had Chris join me as a guest here at Rotary. He was new to Milwaukee at the time, considering a move from New York City, which he ultimately made, but not before a little global pandemic got in the way. But what you're going to hear about today is a really fascinating farm that he's built in the old Century City manufacturing plant. It's incredible. Those of you who have a chance, November 14th, take the Thai Rotarian tour, and if you can't do it then, he does tours other time. By way of background, he's a New Yorkan, raised near Queens. He went to Boston University. He's a former marketing professional who became a chef, who then really saw a problem that he wanted to solve, and he decided to solve it here in Milwaukee. So give it up for my friend Chris Corkery at 100 Acre.
Thank you, Jamie, for having me the second time. This is true. In 2018, I'd first touched down here, and at that time I had an idea, and when I was sitting way back there, I thought, in about a year I'll be up here talking to you all. Well, a bit ambitious, classic New Yorker mentality, but now here I am. So this is a real honor, and I want to also thank the Rotary Club for having me. This is definitely a milestone for a small business owner to be standing in front of all of you. And to share my story. So I'm here today to talk a bit about, who we are, what it is we do, which is pretty unique. You're tasting it right now, some of you, I'm sure. Why we do it and where we're going next. We are a small business startup endeavor. So we're gonna have a little fun here with some classic slides, storytelling, and I'm gonna break it up with some videos. As Jamie mentioned, my background was in media and marketing in the rat race of New York City before I burnt out and went to culinary school and became a chef. The media part allows me to tell stories. I still tell stories as a farmer. So we have some great videos, but now, really the passion of food and why it is we do what we do. So my name, Chris Corkery. I'm the founder and CEO of 100 Acre. A transplant from New York 4 years ago that came here, moved here to do this and only this. I think Jamie was one of the first 10 people I actually met in this city. And in fact, I only knew one person in this city when I did this. So I was cold and alone with a crazy idea that quite frankly had failed quite a bit in the past. And I'm sure some of you know of the other initiatives out there in the farming world that didn't work out. So the odds were stacked up against me. Well, in that first year when we did get open, post-pandemic, remarkable, right? Doing a new business endeavor, doing new construction, and I don't know if you guys remember, but you weren't able to get a hold of a lot of materials, a lot of drivers, things weren't getting done. We had a 6-month construction plan, and of which we got done in 3 months at the Century City facility. First time we were ever doing it, we got it done in 3 months, up and running. By definition, we created a rapid response solution to food insecurity. Up and running, growing fresh food year-round to supply the surrounding area restaurants, which also could not get their food. But as well, our first harvest went to Feeding America. Our very first harvest was a donation to Feeding America and as a real testament to supporting food, greater food security for our surrounding area neighbors. So with our doors opening, and this may be unprecedented for a startup, not only were we set up to do good business as a for-profit, but we were also nailing our mission. So we were really proud of that. In that first year, now into the presentation. In that first year, after 3-month construction in the Century City facilities, which is generally toxic land underneath, we were growing fresh produce and served and fed over 100,000 people here in the Milwaukee area with the products that we grew. Not bad for our first year. Thereafter, 4 years later, we are now all across the state with major and local partners from Kroger to Outpost in the grocery space. We supply schools through groups like Wisconsin Food Hub and Marquette University, while committing to those most in need through Feeding America. And not to mention, of course, I had to reserve some of our product back to what I used to do, which was cooking, to groups like Bacchus and, the Bartolotta Group, hotels like Journeyman, and so on and so forth. Pretty impressive in a 4-year span. Not only did we not go out of business, but we're thriving and expanding. The question is, how did we do this? Well, aside from decent amount of money that it took to do this and a lot of failures along the way, grit, it's really because we are addressing a growing problem. The food system is broken, and that is not only a very widespread problem, but a growing problem. So as that problem grows, so do we, and we continue to rise up and solve that. And it's through decentralized local production of food. So that's the big picture, but I want to take a step back first and just share a little bit about how we grow.
The differences between agricultural farming and hydroponic farming. Hydroponic is just a cleaner process coming from water. You also don't have to worry about the soil and the pesticides and the pests and all those things. We're able to create Mother Nature inside. In Milwaukee and Wisconsin, that's huge because generally, people are having to outsource to different places to get good produce. So to be able to have it right here, and it's hydroponic, which is pretty much the best.
So, as she had mentioned, we grow in a unique way. For those that don't know, hydroponic is growing without soil in a nutrient-rich solution. It allows you to provide a much more controlled, versatile way of growing in a sustainable way, where the product itself, the end product, is truly getting back to where food is medicine. And we do it in a controlled space so that we can grow year-round without the fear of the outside elements, from pests to environmental conditions. And in fact, we actually grow vertically, stacked up in these incredible pallet racks so that we're hyper-efficient. We grow in cubic feet instead of square feet. So as a result, we believe that this is the future of agriculture, or at least one of the many solutions that are needed for a more sustainable food system. To give you context, I did want to get a bit more back into myself and how I ended up doing this, right? Boston University grad with a focus on corporate advertising, which I did, then turned chef. Didn't know where Milwaukee was on the map, I got to be honest. And now here I am running the largest farm in the state of its kind. The beginnings of what I was doing in the advertising world was great. It taught me a lot about how to do business in a big way, how to communicate effectively, not only my message, but clients' messages. And I had real determination. I worked real hard, really hard. And in 8 short years, I kind of rose to the top in my space. And as many do, I made a lot of money and burnt out. I would like to think that that was an early midlife crisis. But in that case, I burnt out and went to culinary school. I had some financial savings, so I had the flexibility to do whatever I wanted to do, which is not always necessarily a good thing. And so in going to culinary school, it felt like quite the opposite. I was going from big ideas, things that I was not necessarily connected to anymore, and getting paid a lot. So I really wasn't doing much, and I was getting paid a lot. And now I go to culinary school and become a chef to feed people, to nourish people, I'm doing a ton in the kitchen and not getting paid anything. That's the relationship of food with our current society. And that was the first kind of eye-opening moment for me. In working in these high-end spaces, I'm sure some of you travel to New York. I worked at Gramercy Tavern, 11 Madison, you know, top-notch spots on a global scale. I was low man on the totem pole. What you're tasked with is actually sourcing and understanding the supply chain. Every top chef and top restaurateur in the world has an undying commitment to where their stuff is coming from. After that is the customer experience, but it's around sustainable supply and being a friend of the farmer. What did that look like for me? Well, at 5:30 in the morning in the dead of winter, I was running down to Union Square with a wheelbarrow to get the best eggplant before anyone else did, literally. And that's where I started to get turned on to the food system in a bigger way, in a way that I had never been exposed to, especially as a New Yorker. You'd tend not to drive out and go up to the farms because it takes about 5 hours to go 5 miles. So that experience in being exposed to agriculture in the heart of one of the largest cities was unique. It was an oasis. I was literally standing in what I consider an urban farm at 6 in the morning before anyone else is awake. These farmers are there, these chefs are there, we're having conversations. They had just driven down in the middle of the night from the Hudson Valley region to share their harvest, their passion, right? And we're there to meet them and then elevate that, right, through value add as chefs, to ultimately then provide food to folks throughout New York City. It's not just about a tasty meal or the bougie experience and saying that you went there, but it's about the nutrients that you're putting inside of your body and the respect for that food. I think we've been losing that, and that's why I went into this space. I wanted to get back to the basics, understand that one-to-one relationship, and really feel the direct impact of what I was doing. If I wasn't good at it, people spit it out. So it felt really good to have that real aspect of what I was doing with this second stage in my career. While working, I think that's when the light bulb started going off. Not to mention, I was a really crappy cook. I was always asking why and not saying yes, chef. I think that points to sort of why I am an entrepreneur. So I knew I wasn't going to cut it, and that wasn't my long-term game plan. It was an R&D experience. That said, I'm taking the financial benefits from my first chapter and the passion from my second, and the light bulb goes off. I'm not going to open a restaurant. I'm not going to be a caterer, but I want to be involved in food. How do I do that in a big way where I start small and it's scalable? It's scalable as an application, as a solution across the United States, where we can provide more personal equity, into personal agency into our food system. And urban farming, to me, seemed to be the right fit. However, when you go online and you see the news, even back then, it's just failure after failure. And anyone that's succeeding is not sharing any information. So it's all a big question mark to me. Fast forward, I leave the food career and, the chef career, and I come into Milwaukee through a good friend named Eric Falkus, a friend of Jamie and I. And he brings me here and he says, listen, your urban farm initiative would fit great in Milwaukee. There's a lot of empty warehouses. There's a level of unemployment that would be willing to work for these types of jobs. However, there's a downtown growing scene of restaurants and high-rises that'll be there to buy your product. He was right. I saw it and I loved it. So my idea was to buy a building, and that's what I set out to do in 2018. 2 years later, I see myself as a developer trying to renovate a building on 27th and Wells, start raising money, and then the good old pandemic hits. You don't raise money in the pandemic, especially at that moment. Not only that, I couldn't get back on a plane from New York to here because there were no planes. So very hard to raise money when you're not able to be there to do so. I think that was my first real eye-opener in what it means to be a small business owner and attempt and fail. Humbling. Fast forward, in that shutdown period, I really started to refine the initiative of me wanting to grow indoors. And when things started to lighten up, with the nest egg of that money I had and the passion around food, I wasn't letting go. And the pandemic, frankly, it actually pointed out how fragile our ailing system is, right? Not to mention the run on toilet paper and all that other stuff that we had. So I thought the time was right, a bit impatient, at least at the time. Being a Wisconsin farmer now has definitely taught me to slow down, but I pulled the trigger, signed a lease in Century City blind, meaning that I was in New York and I had a construction friend check it out and did a 7-year lease, and we spec'd it out all remotely, designing, planning, and as soon as the world lightened up a bit and we were able to get back on planes, I started flying back and forth to put the finishing touches. That was the moment of truth, pulled the trigger, broke ground in August, and we were up and growing by October of 2021. So 4 years ago, last month was our anniversary, along with my anniversary being here. It was not easy. We were, you don't know what you don't know. It's a very new industry. But we were there and we persevered and we started finding our way to build that ecosystem. As I had mentioned, we started with the restaurants and Feeding America. Then we moved on to work with grocery stores because folks were learning who we are because we were on the menu and they were asking if they could buy us, if they can come by the farm and buy a little thing of lettuce. We don't do that. So we went into grocery stores. So now we're in the restaurants and the grocery stores, but the real golden triangle is to also be in the schools. We want to be in every school, grocery store, and restaurant across the United States. And so in 2 short years, that's what we were able to accomplish. And thereafter, we thought, which was 3 years in, let's start turning our basil into the amazing sauce that you just had today, value add. And that's really where the future of our organization is going. It's going from raw goods and renovating raw industrial space and creating some new jobs to value add and creating a premium food brand that is grown in, for, and by Wisconsin. That is actually a very strong business model. So that's a bit about how I came into this position, from earning money and burning out, finding my passion in food and seeing an issue with what's happening, and then getting back to the basics of what I said before, decentralized local production. I'm going to talk a little bit about that problem, and I'm going to speed this up. So, as I mentioned, the food system is broken. Here's what I mean. Here's a perfect example. A chef typically buys a pound of basil for $9. By the time he gets it, he loses half. And it gets thrown in the trash. So what does he do? He has to buy another pound because he knows he's going to lose half. So it's actually, the real cost is $18 to that chef, and also to us home cooks. We see this in our refrigerators at home, especially with vegetables. As a result, 35% of that total food supply goes to waste, and produce accounts for 40% of that. And that's what we're addressing here. And with all of that waste, there's systemic problems that don't only affect our wallets and the small businesses, but it turns into food insecurity for those that most in need. The reason being is that our system has grown to be way too complex. Most food travels thousands of miles and touches up to 7 intermediaries before it's even used. Meanwhile, COVID, tariffs, inflation, whatever you want to throw at it, increase those cracks. And now those cracks have become a chasm with 39 million people living in food deserts. And food deserts don't mean there's no food, it just means there's no nutrients. So we're here to bring nutrients back. As a result, we've kind of defined the problem that we're addressing into 3 areas: unreliable supply, nutritional insecurity, and local inequality. In comes 100 Acre, this vision to decentralize and locally produce and keep our footprint small. It's a few shots of our farm here. We grow hydroponically year-round, so no matter what's happening outside, a heat wave, a hailstorm, a swarm of locusts, which I hope we don't see, it's the same 72 degrees inside, a perfect endless summer every day. and that's really good for business, not just for the plants, but for the people. No longer is farming a taxing, unwanted thing to do, but it's something that the youth is now looking to get back into, and that's super important. I could build 1 million farms, but if there's no one there to grow it, I'm out of business. We specialize in raw goods on the left, salad blends and Italian basil, and we are in the process of rolling out an entire CPG line of sauces that are basil-based. Our customers are broken into schools, grocery stores, and food service, as you see here. And what's better, remember that diagram before? This is our supply chain, from harvest to shelf in hours. It takes us 10 minutes to harvest and cold store, which is impossible outdoors. And within 24 hours or less, our customers are receiving our product. So when you have a bag of salad that's in your refrigerator lasting about a week, ours lasts 6 weeks. And no, we didn't do anything strange to it. And back to those pillars, this is where we stand. I love Venn diagrams. Year-round freshness speaks for itself. A real focus on workforce. If I can't find farmers, I'm out of business. We have to make sure that we start with culture and careers in future-proof agriculture. All the while staying hyper-local at scale, which almost sounds like an oxymoron. How do you stay local while going global? Well, the whole point is knowing that you're growing local and that you have to serve your surrounding community first. Don't build a big factory and Amazonify it. So I'm going to move into another video. This is kind of our feature that is a testament to what we're doing. And keep in mind, when we produced this, it was before we even opened. We didn't know if we were going to work out. So it's incredible to be able to play this in front of all of you now where we're staring at some success, and they're kind of it's foreshadowing into what our future would be.
For a long time, we have been working in that area of using small local farmers to provide our fresh produce. It really speaks to workforce development. It speaks to the health and nutrition of the product. All of that is very much in alignment with what Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin supports.
You know, local food is the most important thing. There's buzzwords that go along with it, with organic and things like that. But if I'm a chef in New York City and I want organic strawberries on my menu, they're coming from California. That doesn't make sense.
From this point forward, it's always been, you don't know where your product's coming from. You know, is it organic? What are the chemicals? Have they been cleaned properly? There's many times that you get product in today, and by tomorrow when you need it, you find that the product is actually already wilting in the bag or not as fine as it should be.
I'm excited about collaborating with 100 Acre because what we are really trying to do is not just solve calorie deficiencies in people who have food insecurity, but more importantly, it's nutritional deficiencies.
Working with 100 Acres, you're getting the food at its best quality, and that is the texture, the color, the flavor, and most importantly, the nutrients.
Partnering with 100 Acre in a community like Milwaukee means that there's not very many miles between us and 100 Acre. We're able to bring it in and we're able to get it out into our communities very quickly. They're also producing at a scale that allows us to bring in a lot of product and move it around the region that we serve, which is 65% of the state of Wisconsin.
We all know the supply chain issues people ran into, food and otherwise, during COVID. For me, it was I couldn't get a pound of basil in 2 months ago to save my life from anywhere.
Working with 100 Acres, you know you're gonna get the product, which is amazing. We decided to partner with 100 Acres right away because not just bringing amazing ingredients to the table, but building the community, creating jobs, training people, and really like getting the word out on what good ingredients are and what else it can support.
Not only is it the economical choice, it's also back to that human connection. I mean, I could tell you everybody that I work with, all the farmers, all the local vendors, about their families, about where they come from and where they're growing, and I've seen their spaces and I've toured it, and that's the most important part for me.
Our mission is to solve hunger, and that goes beyond serving. We want to make sure that we're finding permanent solutions to hunger. But when we start looking at what solve looks like, it's really about these types of partnerships. With 100 Acre being located in Central City, there's so many synergies with the work that we're doing, where community comes together and understands what the needs are of the people who need food assistance, understanding what that is, and then being able to provide that food in a very healthy way, in a very dignified way. And it's also the food that people want. And that's where we are trying to make sure that people get what they want, what they need, at the right time.
In producing that, but so it's really fantastic to know that 4 years ago that's when that video was produced, and now here I stand and can hang the hat up high and say that we held through on our end of the bargain. We're doing it. I'm going to speed up here because I really want to open it up for Q&A. But as a recap, just so you understand sort of the timeline of where we were coming from. Our farm opened essentially in the beginning of 2022, and we've moved along with new products, new partnerships, additional capacity, just becoming a better business so that we can scale into the future. And in fact, we've been sold out for quite a while. Where we're going next, it's really around profitability, adding new products like dressings and sauces. In fact, we even had a basil ice cream through Purple Door Ice Cream this past summer, which was a lot of fun. So we're always playing around. Doubling production and then starting to focus on what this scalable network looks like across similar cities in the United States. That will all translate into, by 2036, hoping that we have 30 farms producing across our cities in the United States, effectively decentralizing the food system and providing local produce within those communities. So at this time, I'd like to open it up for Q&A and hear what you have to say.
Thanks so much, Chris, for speaking with us today and for the pesto. It was delicious. So if you have a question, please start out by introducing yourself.
Hi, I'm Carol Alexander. Thanks so much for coming today. This is totally a weird question. I don't know anything about what you're doing, but I love that you're here and speaking. Can you tell me about the solution that you use in the water to grow and have the nutrients for the products that you grow? How does that affect the taste? And can you manipulate that?
You can manipulate, so I think everyone heard that. But back to my chef days, the hydroponic solution is essentially the equivalent of my secret sauce. So it's a secret recipe. But what we do is fine-tune those types of solutions based on the plants you're growing, knowing what they want. And you're incorporating things like potassium and calcium, natural minerals and vitamins into, in fact, Milwaukee source water. We do filter it to make sure that there's nothing harmful in there. But effectively what we're getting is a really nutrient-rich solution that mimics the qualities of a nice soil without any of the harsh chemicals. And as a result of it being grown hydroponically, it's hyper efficient. It's growing quicker. It's getting everything that it needs and nothing that it wants. It's almost like an athlete performing with all of the great stuff that they need and just doing better and better. So really, that's how we're nurturing these plants and moving it along. And yes, depending on what different vitamins and whatnot that we add, it can change the flavor. We can make our basil more peppery versus more sweet. So it's a lot of fun working in the space. It is very much similar to kind of being a chef again. It's just moving at a snail's pace.
Hi, Jeff Koenig. Thanks for being here. Two-part question. Number one, where does the name come from? And number two, would this venture have been possible without the marijuana industry? And is that what allows you to get the scale that you do with the lighting and all the other equipment? Or is this not profitable without marijuana in the system?
Two awesome questions. First question, 100 Acre, it's twofold. First, it's a business initiative where we are, our mission is to transform industrial real estate and realize 100 acres of traditional growing within that space. right? So it's about efficiency, and it's pointing to how we're transforming urban space into, when we think of acre, we think of something outdoor and far away. So it's a goal around our production capacity. The second part is, I'm a 1982 baby. My name's Christopher. It comes from Winnie the Pooh. That was a very popular thing. And why this matters is that this is serious work we're doing. It's also very challenging. We're more than likely to fail than to succeed. You know, we had to reach into our pocket multiple times, otherwise the doors would have been closed. So it's not for the faint of heart. No entrepreneurial endeavor is, nor is farming. And we're doing both in a very challenging city as it relates to the conservative nature of investing in things, okay? So I'm up against that hill, and I wanted to make sure that I kept it light and that I kept that sense of wonder, and that when you walk into our space, whether you're 5 or you're 85, you get that sense of childlike wonder, and that is what happens when you're in there. But it's not make-believe like in 100 Acre. It's actually very real, or sorry, Winnie the Pooh. And so we want to just, it grounds us to make sure that we don't take ourselves too seriously while we're doing very serious things. Second question on that was the cannabis industry. It absolutely provided R&D initiatives and driving costs down on infrastructure that we are benefiting from. We are using weed lights. It's great. They grow plants like crazy, and without the marijuana industry, it wouldn't have been possible. The challenge, though, is that other parts of what we do is not correlated to the cannabis industry, and because we're growing lettuce, not marijuana, and they are not the same thing. So we're still learning and exploring certain things on our own. So that's a bit of a half-half answer.
How you doing? Reginald Reed. So first, thank you for the work you're doing. That's amazing. My question is, looking at the physical setup of the farm, I'm curious to know what you guys are thinking as it relates to AI and robotic automation to scale operations.
Another great question. AI and robotic, two different things. AI is really not valuable in most manufacturing operations until you're stabilized and have a good amount of data, and we're not there yet. Every day is still sort of topsy-turvy, and we need to have that consistent, beefy data to then start making use of that AI. So more to come on that. On the robotics question, that's very interesting. We have a cultural belief that it takes people to feed people. That's our business model, right? Stretching the limits and growing as close to the downtown inner city area as possible. A lot of our competitors are still growing in far off places, and they're just inside massive Amazon-like warehouses. They're tech-driven, they're tech-invested from Silicon Valley. They're hoping that they're gonna create those robots to replace people that will then feed the future. They keep failing. Why? Because it's not perfected, and then they have to call in people, and no one knows how to do that. So in my opinion, just like with cooking, I'm a romantic about this. It takes people to feed people. So with robotics, we want to see it as an opportunity for our individuals to be more efficient, and so that there are careers in the space, that money can be turned back to them. It's not a crutch or something to replace people so that investors can then make more money off of what we're doing.
How you doing? My name's Antoine Carter. Very cool videos. I noticed in one, there was a lady by the name of Yvonne McCaskill. I grew up over there, that's why. But my question is, most businesses look at Central City as a place to avoid. You have looked at it as a place to invest in. Can you talk about the potential in that space? And also, could you make a pitch to other business leaders to invest in the 53206 neighborhood? Absolutely.
You know, we're addressing food insecurity, and the 53216 area is one of the hardest hit with food insecurity. You know, it's one of the largest food deserts. So it was only appropriate that when we were going to invest into this and get up and running, why not go into one of the hardest hit areas and be that oasis? You know, so it's very specific to our line of work. Also, we are technically in light manufacturing. It's just that our widget is lettuce. And with that said, it's still very fitting for that space. In terms of the other businesses that are there, they're typically taking advantage of lower rent, right? And lower taxes and cheaper labor. And they're just storing stuff. They're not really creating value. Not all, but some. And so what I've been really proposing is that if people are going to be going into these types of areas where there's some economic benefit, use that benefit to offset the risk of thinking bigger. Take bigger chances because your money is not going to be as hard hit, right? And I think that that's really what can be revolutionary for areas like that. And that's really kind of the footprint of where we look to go as we transform additional, it's not just distressed warehouses, but it's the area in which is underserved that it's living. It kind of all grows up together. So it's very specific to my line of work. I can't speak to other manufacturing type operations, but it's a perfect fit for us, especially for the type of entry-level agricultural hiring that we do.
Hi, my name is Greer Jordan. I have a question that kind of intersects some of the other questions around AI and water. So another industry that's decentralized and scaling are these big AI data centers, which I understand are also water intensive. It sounds like what you do is water intensive. So what's the point where maybe these start to either compete with each other? And then what about the piece about the water sustainability in places like this? I mean, that's one of the big advantages that we have where we're located is the access to water. Long term, do you see some pieces around that water conservation piece and these other water intensive industries coming into the state?
So I can't really speak to how the data centers are operating. I understand that the use of water is for cooling initiatives, and I'm not sure what they're doing with the off-put. I'm going to leave you with one fact. My line of work, the way we grow, we use 95% less water than outdoor farming. That's it. That number is a hard number. And why is that? It's because 100% of our water is going into the plant and only the plant, and then that plant is perspiring that 5%. So we are incredibly efficient with the use of water. And while it might not matter too much here in Wisconsin right now, and be careful because everyone from the coast is obviously going to transcend and take all this fresh water, that does matter now in areas like Southern California. So we bring up that fact, it's important. And we're pretty proud of that. That's one of our environmental sustainability boxes that we get to check.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for your presentation. My name's Tom Nujak. Question about the range of produce that you can grow. I saw a lot of basil up there, but I'm thinking about my garden this summer with tomatoes, with zucchini, with some peas. Just how broad a range of produce can be grown in these indoor farms?
It's a good question, and I always have a funny answer. You can't grow apples, right? They're on a tree. So, really the way in which we grow is lending way towards three categories, three. Leafy greens, vine crops like tomatoes and strawberries, and specialty herbs, which still kind of falls into that leafy green category. So it's extremely limited. We're not going to solve world hunger. We're one of many solutions that are needed around the entire food pyramid and food system. Why we choose to grow what we grow is that as a marketer and a chef, I wanted the base of the plate with some lettuce and the top of the plate with some basil, and that's how we got started, door to door to the restaurants we all eat at. In the off hours, I'd sneak in through the back and say, I'm Chris, I opened a farm, and here's our product. It worked because they either want one, the other, or both. The real vision was then, how are we going to turn into a premium Wisconsin food brand with these specialty sauces backed by the basil that we grow? So we think vertically in many ways around that ecosystem. But again, the way in which we grow is extremely limited in the types of things you can do. It's really relegated to those items.
Hi, my name is Fred. So how large is your facility? How many square feet? And are you at capacity, or how is that going to scale up? And then what is your employment base? How many people are operating the farm versus the sales and marketing and branding and things like that?
This is the last question. It's the perfect, I think you got planted. That's perfect. Okay, there's a lot there. So specs. We are growing inside of a 10,000 square foot bay. Out of all the other tenants, there's a 5,000 square foot box that is our farm inside that. And within that, there's a 3,000 square foot grow room with all the plants. That's your ratio. We are at capacity. We continue to improve our operation and increase capacity, but we're still, right now, we're at capacity. Fun fact, and I get to plug this, we are in the process of rolling out a massive partnership with Kroger that's been underway for a year, but these past couple of weeks is where it's been jacked up. We have increased our store presence by 500% in 4 weeks. And so that starts to make you think, well, where are you going next? We are going to be expanding here in Milwaukee into a facility that is 60,000 square feet on the north side, further north. And with that, be 8 times more productive because of all the mistakes that we hopefully made are going to be left behind. And that's sort of a breakdown on the specs. And with some of this success that we're currently experiencing, 6 months ago, we had 4 farmers in the space, and we now have 12. So we have tripled our workforce in 6 months, increased our footprint across stores by 500%, and we are more efficient and about to roll out additional products.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. And as mentioned, we are doing a tour in a couple of weeks, and I think the organization will tell you guys more about it, and I will be the one there to greet you. Thank you.